in a small, dusty town along the U.S. Mexico border. The sun burned relentlessly, and the quiet was often broken only by the occasional rumble of a passing vehicle. This town, tucked between the desert and the border wall, had seen its fair share of trouble over the years. But nothing had prepared the residents for the day the local Border Patrol station house became the scene of a showdown. The trouble started with a group of rough-and-tumble bikers, led by a man known as Grizzly. They weren't your average weekend riders. These were hardened men and women with a reputation for causing chaos wherever they went. As a gang of notorious outlaws, they'd made their way south for what they thought would be a quiet, lawless weekend at a run-down desert bar. But things quickly went sideways. A few too many drinks, a bar fight, and soon, the bikers were making their way toward the station house. Word had spread that Border Patrol had been pulling over bikers lately, hassling anyone who looked like they were breaking the law, even if it was just a few minor traffic violations. As they approached the station house on their roaring motorcycles, they weren't just angry, they were looking for a fight. They parked their bikes in front of the station, revving the engines in defiance, eyes scanning for any Border Patrol officers they could provoke. Inside the station, however, was someone who wasn't easily intimidated. Staff Sergeant Ethan Hall, a former Army Ranger, had recently been reassigned to this quiet post after his service in the Middle East. Hall was no stranger to chaos. He had seen his share of combat, and he'd learned that when you're facing a dangerous situation, you don't show fear. It was a mindset that had served him well during years of active duty, and it was something he'd brought with him when he joined the Border Patrol. The bikers were already starting to harass the officers on duty, shouting insults and taunting them from the front steps. But when Hall stepped out of the station house, his calm demeanor immediately caught their attention. Grizzly, the leader of the gang, sneered as he approached. "You one of the so-called heroes working this station?" Grizzly barked, a wicked grin on his face. "What's a soldier doing here? Is this your new war zone?" Hall stood tall, his eyes narrowing, but never showing fear. "I serve this country, whether it's in a war zone or on the border. You're not welcome here." The air crackled with tension. The bikers started revving their engines, getting closer to Hall, expecting him to back down. But he stood his ground. Grizzly stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. "You know," Grizzly said, "we don't like being told what to do. So how about you show us just how tough you are, soldier?" Without warning, one of the bikers lunged at Hall, but in a blur of motion, Hall expertly sidestepped, grabbing the man's arm and twisting it behind his back, forcing him to the ground. The other bikers hesitated, clearly stunned by Hall's speed and precision. Grizzly's smirk faded, replaced by something more dangerous. He ordered the gang to surround Hall, weapons in hand. But Hall wasn't just some rookie officer. His combat instincts kicked in, and he quickly assessed the situation. The bikers might have had numbers, but he had the training. He took a step back, his hand on the service weapon at his hip. "I don't want to hurt anyone," he said coldly, "but if you don't leave now, I will defend myself." The bikers hesitated, their bravado faltering under Hall's unwavering presence. Grizzly, seeing his gang's unease, took one last glance at Hall. Realizing they were up against more than they had bargained for, he nodded at his crew. "This is your last warning, soldier," Grizzly growled. "Next time, we won't be so nice." But Hall wasn't done. He stepped forward, voice even and calm. "You won't be coming back. Not if you know what's good for you." And with that, the bikers, faced with a man who'd been to hell and back, decided to cut their losses. One by one, they climbed onto their bikes, the roar of their engines a low, defeated growl as they turned and sped off into the desert. As the dust settled and the sound of motorcycles faded into the horizon, Hall remained standing, unwavering. The station house had been tested, and in that moment, It wasn't just a border patrol station. It was a testament to the kind of justice that ran deep in this land. For the bikers, they had learned one valuable lesson: never mess with a soldier at the border.